Oh my God, a fire truck just collided with a car right here.
Four people and an unborn child died in that crash, and now a 28-year-old woman is facing a charge of manslaughter.
Oh my God. A fire truck just collided with a car right here. February 26th, 2024. Tulsa, Oklahoma. A fire truck barrels down 41st Street, sirens screaming, lights flashing red and blue against the winter sky. Inside engine 19, firefighters grip their seats as the massive vehicle races toward a building fire in Midtown. 30,000 pounds of steel and water, moving at 67 miles per hour. They're trained for this. They've done it 1,000 times. But 3 seconds from now, 5 people will be dead. A white Hyundai Accent sits at the intersection of South New Haven Avenue. 6 people crammed inside. 3 adults, 3 children. The youngest is 1-year-old. The oldest is 23. 2 of those kids call the woman behind the wheel Mommy. The fire truck moves into oncoming traffic to pass. The Hyundai turns left. Metal meets metal. Glass explodes. Bodies are crushed. Screaming. Sirens. Chaos. When the dust settles, 5 people are gone. A 23-year-old woman, a 5-year-old girl, a 4-year-old girl, a 1-year-old baby, an unborn child. But here's what nobody tells you. The woman behind the wheel didn't just survive. She's now suing the firefighters who were racing to save lives that night. So let me ask you this. Was this a tragic accident or something far worse? Welcome to Shadows of Crime. If you're ready for a story that'll make you question everything, hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and share this video. So let's drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from today, because this story is about to get wild. Keosha Rucker was 32 years old, living in Tulsa, trying to make it work. Single mother, 2 daughters, 4-year-old Makia Chapman and 1-year-old Isaiah Jones. Friends and family described her as someone who loved her kids, someone who was doing her best in a city where making ends meet wasn't easy. But peel back that layer, and you'll find something darker. Keosha didn't have a driver's license, hadn't had one in years. That didn't stop her from getting behind the wheel. On February 26th, 2024, she was driving a white 2019 Hyundai Accent, and she wasn't alone. 6 people packed into that car. Her 2 daughters, Makia and Isaiah, strapped into the back. Her 5-year-old niece, Kehlani Jones, sitting beside them. 23-year-old Tamia Ray in the passenger seat. A 26-year-old woman in her 2nd trimester of pregnancy, carrying what would have been her first child. And 1 more adult, 28 years old, squeezed into the vehicle. It was a Tuesday evening. Maybe they were running errands, maybe visiting family, maybe just driving around Tulsa, doing what families do. Nobody in that car knew they were riding with death. Because Keosha had a secret. Inside her system, cocaine and marijuana. Not from days ago. Recent use, within the last 12 hours. The car reeked of weed. Police would later find marijuana, a bag of white powder, and a straw inside the vehicle. Keosha wasn't just unlicensed, she was high, and she was responsible for 6 lives. Her daughters trusted her. Tamia Ray trusted her. The pregnant woman trusted her. Kehlani, just 5 years old, didn't even have a choice. Keosha had no criminal record, no history of violence, no red flags that screamed danger. To the outside world, she was just another mom trying to get by. But on that Tuesday evening, as she drove west on East 41st Street between Harvard and Yale Avenues, she was carrying something far more dangerous than passengers. She was carrying a choice that would end 5 lives in less than 3 seconds. But Keosha had a secret, one that would come out in the most horrifying way possible. 6:30 p.m., East 41st Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Rush hour traffic crawls through the intersection near South New Haven Avenue, families heading home, workers finishing their shifts, kids in back seats asking when dinner will be ready. Then the sirens start. Tulsa Fire Department engine. 19 tears down the street, emergency lights strobing, air horn blasting. A building fire in Midtown. Lives at risk. The crew inside knows the drill. Get there fast, get there safe. The fire truck weighs over 30,000 pounds fully loaded. Stopping distance? Longer than most people think. The engine barrels westbound at 67 miles per hour, more than 20 miles over the speed limit. But Oklahoma law allows it. Emergency vehicles can exceed speed limits when responding to calls, as long as they don't endanger life or property. Cars pull to the right. Drivers hit their brakes. The intersection clears. Except for one vehicle. Keosha Rucker's white Hyundai Accent sits in the inside westbound lane, brake lights glowing red. She stopped at the intersection of South New Haven Avenue, waiting to turn left. Behind her, the fire truck closes in. Sirens wailing, lights flashing. Impossible to miss. Witnesses would later say the siren was audible for 14 seconds from outside the vehicle. But inside Keosha's car, windows up, music playing, the reaction time was closer to 2 seconds. Keosha sees the fire truck. She knows it's there, and she turns left anyway. The fire truck driver, Josh Stern, swerves into the oncoming eastbound lane to pass her on the left. Standard maneuver. He's done it 100 times. But Keosha's Hyundai is already moving, already turning. The fire truck slams into the driver's side. 67 miles per hour, 30,000 pounds. No time to stop. Metal twists. Glass explodes. The Hyundai crumples like paper. The impact is so violent that the car spins, flips, and comes to rest in a mangled heap. Inside, 6 people. 3 adults, 3 children. Emergency responders jump from the fire truck and sprint to the wreckage. They're trained for this. They've seen crashes before, but nothing prepares them for what they find. Tommy Array, 23 years old, dead at the scene. Kalani Jones, 5 years old, gone. Makia Chapman, 4 years old, Keosha's daughter, dead. Isaiah Jones, 1-year-old, Keosha's baby, dead. The 26-year-old pregnant woman survives, but her unborn child does not. 5 lives. Gone. Keosha Rucker, alive, critically injured, paralyzed from the waist down, unable to move her right limbs, but breathing. Oh my God, a fire truck just collided with a car. 6 people inside. Police arrive. Tulsa PD begins the investigation. Accident reconstruction specialists measure skid marks, document vehicle positions, interview witnesses, and then they search the car. Marijuana, a bag of white powder, a straw, the smell of weed so strong it fills the air. Blood tests come back. Cocaine, THC, recent use, within 12 hours. Keosha Rucker was high. She had no driver's license, and she'd just killed her own children. Pause for a second. Would you get in a car with someone who's high? Comment never if you wouldn't, because Keosha's passengers didn't get a choice. Tulsa Police Department doesn't waste time. Within hours of the crash, investigators are all over the scene. Accident reconstruction specialists measure every skid mark, photograph every piece of debris, document the exact position of both vehicles. They interview witnesses. They pull data from the fire truck's onboard systems. They build a timeline, and then they test Keosha's blood. The toxicology report comes back fast. Cocaine, THC, not trace amounts, active metabolites, the kind that show recent use within the last 12 hours. The car reeked of marijuana. Police found weed inside the vehicle, a bag of white powder, and a straw. This wasn't recreational use from days ago. Keosha Rucker was high when she got behind the wheel with 6 people in her car. No driver's license. Drugs in her system. Failure to yield to an emergency vehicle with lights and sirens blaring. Tulsa County District Attorney's Office moves fast. 5 counts of first-degree manslaughter. 1 count of driving under the influence. 1 count of failure to yield to an emergency vehicle. Each manslaughter charge carries a potential life sentence. Kayosha is arrested. She's hospitalized first, recovering from her injuries, paralyzed from the waist down. Then she's transferred to jail to await trial. And that's when things get absolutely insane. Inmates are warned the moment they enter the system. Every phone call you make is recorded. Every conversation is monitored. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court. It's not a secret. It's not hidden. You're told this repeatedly. Kayosha makes phone calls anyway. In one conversation, someone on the outside asks her about quitting marijuana, about changing her life, about taking responsibility for what happened. Her response? Hell no. When I get out, I'm going to smoke a blunt. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I can't believe I killed my babies. Not, I wish I could take it back. Just weed. Just getting high again the moment she's free. Prosecutors get the recordings. They listen. They can't believe what they're hearing. This isn't a woman drowning in guilt. This isn't someone who understands the magnitude of what she's done. This is someone already planning her next high. The case goes to court. The courtroom is packed. Families of the victims fill the benches, many of them wearing shirts with photos of their loved ones printed across the front. Prosecutors play the jail calls. The courtroom erupts. People are crying. People are shouting. The families can't believe what they're hearing. Kayosha's own words, recorded in her own voice, showing zero remorse. Showing that even after killing 5 people, including her own children, she's already thinking about getting high again. Her defense attorney tries to salvage the situation. He argues that Kayosha has suffered enough. She's paralyzed. She'll never walk again. She lost her daughters. She's living with unimaginable grief. Isn't that punishment enough? But the prosecution fires back. Tamia Ray was 23 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. Keelani Jones was 5, just starting kindergarten. Makia Chapman was 4. Isaiah Jones was 1 year old. Babies who trusted their mother to keep them safe. And the unborn child never even got a chance to breathe. 5 lives. 5 futures. Gone. And Kayosha Rucker? She wants to smoke a blunt. The families sit in that courtroom staring at the woman who destroyed their lives, and they hear her say those words. They see her show no remorse. They watch her defense team argue that she's the real victim here. But wait, because Kayosha's about to do something that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about justice. October 2024, 8 months after the crash, Kayosha Rucker sits in a Tulsa courtroom facing 5 counts of first-degree manslaughter, 1 count of driving under the influence, and 1 count of failure to yield to an emergency vehicle. Her plea? No contest. Not guilty. Not, I didn't do it. Just, I'm not fighting it. A no contest plea is legally the same as a guilty plea for sentencing purposes. But it's different in one critical way. It doesn't require the defendant to admit guilt. It's a strategic move, often used when civil lawsuits are looming. Because if you admit guilt in criminal court, that admission can be used against you in civil court. And Kayosha Rucker? She's already planning her next move. The Tulsa County District Attorney's Office had offered her a deal early on. 50 years in prison. She turned it down. Maybe she thought she could do better at trial. Maybe she thought a jury would feel sorry for her. But then those jail calls surfaced. The ones where she talked about smoking weed the moment she got out. The ones that showed zero remorse. Her defense team knew they were in trouble. So she pleads no contest, avoids a trial, moves straight to sentencing. January 9th, 2026. Nearly 2 years after the crash, the courtroom is packed. Families of the victims fill every seat. Many of them are wearing shirts with photos of Tamia Ray, Kehlani Jones, Makia Chapman, and Isaiah Jones printed across the front. Their faces stare out at Keosha from every corner of the room. Judge David Gutten presides. He's heard the evidence. He's listened to the jail calls. He's read the toxicology reports. He knows exactly what happened on February 26, 2024. Prosecutors argue that Keosha Rucker showed zero remorse, that even after killing 5 people, including her own children, she was already planning to get high again, that she has demonstrated a fundamental disregard for human life. Her defense attorney, Nathan Milner, tries a different angle. He argues that the fire truck was traveling too fast, 61 to 67 miles per hour in a 40-mile-per-hour zone. He argues that Keosha only had 2 seconds to react to the siren, that the fire truck driver saw her brake lights and didn't slow down, that this was a tragic accident, not a crime. He argues that Keosha has already suffered enough. She's paralyzed. She'll never walk again. She lost her 2 daughters. She's living with grief that most people can't comprehend. Isn't that punishment enough? Judge Gutten listens. He takes it all in. And then he delivers his sentence. 5 life sentences. 1 for each victim. 4 of those sentences will run concurrently, at the same time. But the 5th, consecutive, after the others. In practical terms, Keosha Rucker will spend a minimum of 40 years in prison before she's eligible for parole. At her current age, that's effectively the rest of her life. Judge Gutten looks directly at her. If the loss of 5 lives, including your own children, wasn't enough to change your behavior, nothing will. The courtroom explodes. Families sob. Some scream. Others sit in stunned silence, finally hearing the words they've been waiting 2 years to hear. Keosha Rucker? Silent. No tears. No reaction. She's wheeled out of the courtroom in her wheelchair, headed to prison for the rest of her life. But here's the kicker. Before sentencing, Keosha filed a civil lawsuit against the city of Tulsa and the Tulsa Fire Department. She's suing them for negligence, for wrongful death. She claims the fire truck driver, Josh Stern, was reckless, that he was driving too fast, that he moved into oncoming traffic without regard for her safety. She's seeking damages for her injuries, for her paralysis, or for the deaths of her 2 daughters, Micaiah and Isaiah, the children she killed. The woman who was high behind the wheel, who had no driver's license, who failed to yield to an emergency vehicle, is now suing the firefighters who were racing to save lives. Let me get this straight. She kills 5 people while high, gets life in prison, and then sues the firefighters. Comment. Unbelievable if this makes you sick. The lawsuit is filed under the Oklahoma Governmental Tort Claims Act and the state's wrongful death statute. Keosha Rucker versus the city of Tulsa and the Tulsa Fire Department. She's seeking damages exceeding $75,000 for her catastrophic injuries, medical expenses, burial costs, loss of companionship, and pain and suffering. Her attorney, Nathan Milner, builds the case around one central argument. The fire truck was going too fast, 61 to 67 miles per hour in a 40-mile-per-hour zone. Keosha Rucker was high. Cocaine and THC in her system. She had no driver's license. She failed to yield to an emergency vehicle with lights and sirens activated. Oklahoma law explicitly requires drivers to yield the right-of-way to emergency vehicles, making use of audible and visual signals. Drivers are supposed to pull to the right, stop, and remain in position until the emergency vehicle has passed. Keosha didn't do that. She turned left, directly into the fire truck's path. The public reaction to the lawsuit? Outrage. Social media explodes. Comments flood in from across the country. How dare she blame the people trying to save lives? She killed her own kids and now wants money? This is disgusting. Legal experts weigh in. Most agree that Keosha's criminal conviction makes this civil case nearly impossible to win. Her no contest plea, the toxicology reports, the jail calls showing no remorse, all of it can be used against her in civil court. Proving that a firefighter was reckless while responding to an emergency with lights and sirens activated is extremely difficult under the best circumstances. When the plaintiff was high and unlicensed, nearly impossible. But the legal process, that'll drag on for years. Another survivor from the crash has also filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the city of Tulsa and the Tulsa Fire Department. Ataja Martin's case focuses on the deaths of the victims and seeks damages for their loss. As of now, both lawsuits are still pending. The city of Tulsa hasn't commented publicly. City attorneys are expected to vigorously defend against the claims. And Keosha? She's sitting in a cell, paralyzed, with 40 years ahead of her. Before we go any further, we need to stop. We need to remember why we're here. Because this isn't just a story about a crash, a trial, or a lawsuit. This is a story about 5 people who will never come home. Tamia Ray was 23 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. Dreams, plans, people who loved her. She got into that car on February 26, 2024, trusting that she'd make it to wherever they were going. She never made it. Tamia died at the scene, or her life cut short before she ever had the chance to see what she could become. Keilani Jones was 5 years old, just starting school, learning to read, making friends, discovering the world. She was Keosha's niece, a little girl who trusted her aunt to keep her safe. She didn't get a choice about getting into that car. She didn't know what was coming. Keilani died in the wreckage, her childhood stolen in an instant. Makia Chapman was 4 years old. She called Keosha Mommy. She trusted her mother more than anyone else in the world. When you're 4, your mom is everything. Your protector, your hero, the person who's supposed to keep you safe no matter what. Makia died because the person she trusted most put her in danger. Isaiah Jones was 1 year old, a baby. She hadn't even learned to walk yet, hadn't said her first full sentence, and hadn't experienced a birthday she'd remember. Isaiah's entire life was ahead of her. First day of school, first crush, first heartbreak, first love. All of it, gone. She died in her mother's car, never knowing why. And then there's the unborn child. No name, no face, no photos to remember, but a life nonetheless. A baby in the 2nd trimester, growing, developing, preparing to enter the world. That child's mother survived the crash, but the baby did not. A future erased before it ever began. 5 lives. 5 futures. Gone in 3 seconds. These weren't just statistics in a police report. They weren't just numbers in a court case. They were people. They had families who loved them, friends who missed them. Futures that will never happen. Tamia will never turn 24. Keilani will never graduate kindergarten. Makia will never lose her first tooth. Isaiah will never take her first steps. The unborn baby will never take a first breath. They mattered, and they deserved better. So here's the question nobody wants to ask, but everybody needs to answer. How do we stop this from happening again? Because this wasn't some freak accident. This wasn't an act of God. This was preventable. 5 people died because of choices. Choices that could have been different. Let's start with drivers. Never, ever get behind the wheel impaired. Not after 1 drink. Not after smoking weed. Not after using cocaine. Your reaction time slows. Your judgment fails. Your ability to process what's happening around you disappears. And when an emergency vehicle comes screaming down the street with lights and sirens, you need every millisecond of reaction time you can get. But Oklahoma law is clear. When you see or hear an emergency vehicle, you pull to the right, you stop, and you stay stopped until it passes. Not sometimes, every time. The 3-second rule applies here too. Maintain at least 3 seconds of distance between you and the vehicle ahead. Give yourself space to react. And if you don't have a license, don't drive. Period. Now let's talk about emergency responders. Firefighters, paramedics, police officers, they're racing to save lives. They're trained to move fast. But speed has to be balanced with safety. Studies show that enhanced training for emergency vehicle operators can reduce crashes by 19 to 50%. Simulators that replicate high-speed response scenarios help drivers make better decisions in real time. Telematics systems can monitor speed and enforce due regard standards, so ensuring that responders aren't putting the public at unnecessary risk. Training saves lives, on both sides of the siren. And then there's the community level. Intersection preemption systems, technology that changes traffic lights to green when emergency vehicles approach, can reduce response times and crashes. Rumble strips near fire stations alert drivers that they're entering high-traffic emergency zones. Public awareness campaigns that teach people how to yield properly can boost compliance by 30%. These aren't theoretical solutions. They work. They've been tested. They save lives. But here's the bigger question. Was justice served? Kyosha Rucker got 5 life sentences, 40 years minimum before parole. She'll spend the rest of her life in prison, paralyzed, living with the knowledge that she killed 5 people, including her own daughters. Is that justice? Or is it just punishment? But here's the thing nobody talks about. Every night, when the lights go out and the cell block goes quiet, Kyosha will close her eyes. And she'll see them. Makia, 4 years old, smiling up at her. Isaiah, 1-year-old, reaching for her. The daughters she was supposed to protect. The daughters she killed. She'll hear their voices. She'll remember their laughter. She'll relive that moment on February 26th, 2024, when she made the choice to get behind the wheel, high, unlicensed, and responsible for 6 lives. And she'll know that they're gone because of her. Is that justice? Or is that hell? What do you think? Justice or tragedy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story made you think twice about getting behind the wheel, share it. Someone out there needs to hear this. Hit that subscribe button and smash the bell, because next week we're diving into a case that'll make this one look tame. This is Shadows of Crime, where the truth is darker than fiction. Stay safe out there. And remember, your choices matter, because in 3 seconds, everything can change.